Hi and welcome back. In this video I'm going to go over how to glue up the shelf. We've planed all the surfaces, we've sanded them with 220 grit, and I believe we're ready to glue up. Before I glue up though, I like to always go through a dry run. That is, dry fit it together. That way there's no surprises when there's glue on the surfaces. So I'm going to go ahead and dry fit this together. And even in the dry fitting process, you can see it's a good practice run for you to be able to go through when there's glue on the surface. So we're going to start by putting the two sides together with the middle shelf and the arched pieces. So this is pretty much the same way I would glue it up. I'd start by putting this shelf in place, then I'd come back here and I'd put in this upper arch here, just like that. Put in this lower arch here, then we can put this piece on, make sure there's no junk inside the joints there, and we'll put that on just like this. We might have to set this up on the edge here to tap this through because it is a through tenon. Make that lined up there and go ahead and fit this together. This needs to be driven down more. There we go, squeaky tight. Now that that's fit together, nice and tight there. Now that that's fit together, nice and tight, now we can put the top and the bottom in place. I'm going to go ahead and tap this in here like this. And we'll dry fit it here. It's all dry fit together. It looks good. Nice and tight. I'm going to check this to make sure that everything is nice and flush and tight. Shoulders look good. This is pulling up tight right here. This is pulling, well, there's a little gap right there, but if I pull that, looks like we could pull that a little bit. In fact, I might want to actually trim a little bit on the top there to pull this up tight up against here. So other than that, I think we are ready to glue. I can even just fit just this joint here to ensure that it comes together by coming in like this and putting in the shelf just like this. And I can see now that that comes together right there nice and tight. Let's go ahead and glue. As you can see, I've cleared the bench off and I want to make sure that I lay everything out in order. What we'll need to glue is you'll need two long clamps and you'll need a couple of these smaller clamps here. You'll need two of those and then two of these here. Got some white glue, a rag to wipe off any excess, a couple popsicle sticks, and of course an assembly hammer. I've got some cauls to help distribute the clamping pressure and to protect the clamp from marring the wood. I do have some pads that are already glued onto the ends of the bar clamps, which do help make it easier, especially if you're gluing it by yourself. Holding the cauls and trying to balance that and clamp it can be difficult. So I've just pre-glued these little pieces of cardboard onto the end of the clamp, and that works well to protect the clamp from marring the surface. I think we're ready here. Left, make sure the left goes there, the right goes there. Lay everything out, so all you have to do is reach over and put it right in. Let's see, this is the bottom one, so this one we'll put over here. And this is the top one, so we'll put that right there. Let's put a little glue right here in the dado. Now, pine is somewhat of a porous wood, so you've got to use a fair amount of glue. Of course, you don't want to use too much glue. And I'll put this piece right in here like this. Then I'm going to take and put glue right inside here. You can even use a popsicle stick to spread the glue out. You want to work fairly fast because the glue will tend to swell up the joints. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little glue on the tenon on this one, being that this is a through tenon. If I put the glue on the mortise, what would happen is when I pushed it through, it would push the glue out the other side and make a mess. Of course, this will squeeze a little glue out, but it won't be as bad. So I'm putting the glue just on the tenon here, and I'm also going to put it along this top edge, and this will squeeze up tight, strengthening this middle shelf. I'll just put this on the edge right here and then slide this on all the way in like that. And there we have it. Now let's put some glue on the right side here. Again, we'll put the glue inside this mortise here, all along the side there, as well as on the cheeks of the tenon. There's not much holding power on the shoulder with the glue. There's most of the holding power with the glue is on the cheeks. Being that this is a through tenon, we'll just put that right up on top of there. We'll take this and position it right here and work it down on there and across like this. There we have it. Just leveling up the back to make sure that it's nice. We'll check the front. Of course, the front is what needs to be tight. Now we'll go ahead and glue the top and the bottom. Let's start with the bottom. We'll put a little glue right here in the bottom. Just spread the glue, making sure that you get it on the sides as well as the bottom. The sides of the dado. And then just take this, make sure there's no material that's going to get caught there, any little chips of wood, and we'll put that right inside there. And a little persuasion. And then we'll glue the top. And then I'll glue along this top edge right here. Now I'm going to take it and go ahead and drive these in nice and tight there. You can see there's a little variation right there. Not a problem. We can plane that off afterwards. Making sure this is good and tight. We'll flip it over. One final inspection before we clamp. This is flush. Those are tight. We're good to go. Let's go ahead and put a clamp this way. That's what we're going to use the long clamps for. So we're going to put a clamp right in the center right here, just like this, and another clamp right here as well. Tighten those up, equal pressure on each side. Then we'll take a couple cauls, which are basically just pieces of scrap wood, and they're going to straddle the entire width here. We can then put one of these clamps right here, and the cauls will help distribute the clamping pressure as long as we make sure that the clamp is directly in line with that shelf. We can tighten that up, and then we'll come back with this clamp. Just turn this around like this. And the cauls, the main purpose for the cauls here is to help keep the clamp from damaging the actual pine surface. You can use a wooden clamp for this, but the metal clamp will work. You just have to protect the surface. And you can see we'll just bring that in together nice and tight like that. And we'll do the same thing over on this bottom one. Again, I want to make sure that the pressure is in line with the joint. So the clamping pressure is directly in line with where I am intending to clamp it tight. I'm fairly happy with this glue up. I'm just going to check the clamp pressure. I'll even turn this around and just check it from the other side and make sure. I can always put an additional clamp right here in the back. I've got the clamp here, and that'll help squeeze any little gap there that I have right here on the back side. There we go. One last thing that I like to do is I like to just test it for square. On a shelf like this, it really doesn't matter, but it's more important when you're making a cabinet where you're fitting a door and you have multiple parts, say a chest of drawers or a cabinet with a door and such, where you're trying to fit that door into an opening. Really important there that everything is square. Everything should be square on this because I've squared all of the shoulders, and as I mentioned earlier, the shoulders define this shelf as being square. It helps maintain the squareness of the shelf. But sometimes the clamps can pull it out of square. So it's fairly simple to test it for square. We can just take a tape measure and measure from corner to corner. So we'll just take it from this corner. As long as it's a consistent corner, of course I've chamfered these corners, so it might be a little bit difficult. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the tape measure on the inside and then go to a consistent point. Let's go to the inside here. So I get 25 1/4 sighting straight down like this. We'll do the exact same thing on this side as well, and we'll see what we get. I'm about a 1/16 of an inch off. That's a 1/16 long in this direction. That means I'm only a 32nd of an inch out total in both directions. I could take and squeeze it a little bit in this direction like this and maybe take up a little bit. Let's try it and see. Again, I'm not terribly worried about it because I don't have any doors that fit in this. And now we're about, I've moved it maybe a 32nd of an inch. Let's check it this way. So I would say maybe it's a 32nd of an inch out. So I'm happy with that. And that pretty much concludes the making of this shelf. Of course, once those glues dry, which I like to let the glue dry overnight if possible, 4 hours is fine. Once the glue is dry, then I like to come back with a chisel and just clean up any extra glue that may be left in the corners. And then you can choose to finish it how you'd like. I prefer to use a deft spray lacquer which works as a wonderful finish on the pine. You've got to be careful staining the pine because it can blotch and such, but a spray lacquer or a shellac works nice. So I hope you enjoyed the video series. If you have any questions in regards to making this shelf or any other questions, please comment below and we'll answer your questions. Thanks for watching.